Welcome to another edition of Catching Up with the RAMily, joined today by Fordham Interim Director of Athletics Ed Kull and recent inductee into the College Basketball Hall of Fame, Tom Penders. Tom, congratulations. Thanks for being with us.
Well, it's great to be with you guys. Maybe I can wear a Fordham cap during that induction next November.
Well, you're also a Hall of Famer at Fordham as well, so impressive
Yep.
track record to be sure. What was your initial reaction when you learned the news that you would be inducted?
Well, at first, it was last January. It wasn't this November. They shocked us by actually getting the announcement on television. We didn't think that would ever happen, but we were alerted that we were going to be in the class of 2020. So with all the COVID issues and not being able to announce it at the Final Four like they always do, they had to push it ahead and push it ahead. And all the way up to August, we thought they were still going to announce it and we were going to have ceremonies this November, but we got the announcement. And now the entire class of 2020 is going to go and become the class of 2021.
Those COVID issues continue, Coach. COVID world we're living in.
Yeah, exactly. But people, they ask me how I feel. Just as excited as I felt last January when I found out, for some reason, because I can finally talk about it. You're with close friends or you talk to them, your former players, they're always calling me. It seems like a day doesn't go by when I have contact from a former player, whether it was at Fordham and I have a couple of Fordham kids that call me all the time. One's in his 60s, the other's in his 50s. So, I have 7 families of former players. Dean Smith at North Carolina used to talk about his family, the Carolina family. I have 7 families. And then going back to my high school career, I have 2 more there. So, I chose to go a different way. And I got a reputation early on to be a builder, to build programs, turnaround programs. And once you get a reputation for doing anything in coaching, that's usually how you get your next job. Sometimes a little short guy gets fired, so they want a big, tall coach the next time. Sometimes they want a guy with curly hair because the other guy didn't have any hair. That's the way it goes, or the way it went.
Coach, you've definitely definitely have been a program builder, whether it's been at Columbia, GW, Rhode Island, Texas, Houston, your incredible career. Over your right shoulder there on that beautiful trophy case of yours, you have your Fordham Hall of Fame plaque. Talk to us about your 8 years at Rose Hill in the Bronx and how you built that program to be successful and winner 5 NITs, obviously a winning record over an 8-year stretch and a Hall of Famer here at Fordham. Talk about that experience if you can and how you built that program.
Well, I was at Columbia for the previous 4 years. And every Monday they had a luncheon at Mama Leone's in those days. And all the coaches came from everywhere. Division III coaches, Division II coaches, anybody in New York metropolitan area, there was a coach was invited. And sometimes the athletic directors would come along too. And all the media would come from everywhere. And the challenge of the day was to get a story out of it as a coach. And Bill Raftery taught me really early on. He said, you want to get some news, be about 5th or 6th in the order. Never bat first. Never, don't be early. Come a little bit late, and then they'll add you. Because if you're first, every other coach that comes up there is going to kill you. They'll make fun of you or what you said. And that's how it was. It was a bunch of coaches. Nobody was jealous of anybody. We all got along, and Bill Raftery, among many others, but Bill mainly introduced me to the New York media and how to deal with them. And, we're still friends to this day. And he's a wonderful human being. And I couldn't be happier that he's still on air because, he's getting up there, serious time now, but he looks the same. He has the same attitude. So I go to these luncheons, and a guy named John Andres, who's a Hall of Famer at Fordham,
Yes.
too. John and I became friendly, and he asked me just flat out one day, and I almost passed out when he said, "Would you be interested in the Fordham job?" I said, "Yeah, but I probably have to, go in front of a committee and all that stuff, and I don't want to do that. I'm happy at Columbia. I've got a great team. I had one of the best teams in the metro area with Alton Bird and Ricky Free and Juan Mitchell. They were all like all metro players, and Ricky Free was the #1 recruit in the country that year. And Joe B. Hall from Kentucky said one of his biggest disappointments was not landing him and losing him to an Ivy League school. So that was our big recruit. And we could have played anybody when we were healthy. We just seemed to, somebody would get a sprained ankle at the wrong time and ruin our chances to win an Ivy League. But I knew how good Fordham could be, just by being close to them and playing them. My last year at Columbia, we played Fordham twice. We had a hard time scheduling. Nobody wants to schedule you when you go from a loser to a winner. They just, either they don't return the call or they return it and say, "Nah, sorry, no way. We're all full up. We don't want to add you to the schedule." So Columbia, Fordham, to me, it was a move up in a lot of ways. I could give scholarships out. In those days, I believe it was 15. And I could build my own program there because they were lower than scratch. They were struggling big time. They lost to City College the year before. They just struggled. And my Columbia team beat them twice, and they were both pretty easy wins. So anyway, it happened about a week later. I got a call from the vice president there, a guy named Bill Crawley. He called me up at home because John gave him the number, and we talked. And then we met for lunch the next day, and it was done just like that. And at that time, there was no athletic director at Fordham. Pete Carlissimo had retired, and Dave Rice, who became coordinator of athletics, was a Division II football coach. And I don't know if he even wanted to have anything to do with basketball or controlling it, but I was in effect the athletic director in charge of basketball. So all those things attracted me to Fordham, and it was going to take some time. We knew it was probably going to take at least 3 years because I had to clean out, I never ran a kid off, but our practices were pretty competitive and pretty tough. And some of the kids just said, "Coach, I think I'm going to give up basketball, whatever. You name the excuse, I got it." But they were all good kids. And some of them were holdovers that played for me, like TK Trapuka comes to mind. He was a very good post player. And I still love that kid. Kevin White, who was the captain of the team, was a senior. And Bill Lombardi. Bill was a very good player. Just didn't have the speed and quickness to pressure anybody. But we hung in there with a number of schools. We played UCLA when they were #1, Notre Dame when they were #1, all on the same road trip. We would go here, there, everywhere for guarantee money so we could afford to go on the road. And during the semester break in the winter, we couldn't be on campus. There was no dorm space, or they didn't heat the dorms, but we weren't allowed to be on campus. So we just had to go 3 weeks, and we were out of town, and we played in tournaments in every part of the country. Anywhere where they would put us up, give us a room and some meal money, that's what we had to do. And that was for my predecessor as well. It wasn't something new. That's what we did. I led the country for 8 years and having my hand out for guarantee money. And if you don't get the guarantee, you're not playing Fordham. So it was all a great experience. And I can't remember a downtime. I really can't. There were changes going on. And I never had to answer to an athletic director, which was fine. You know, I was able to do what I needed to do with the money that was allotted to me. And I used it wisely because we didn't play a lot of home games, but we played at Madison Square Garden probably 5 times a year in my last 6 years at Fordham. I got to know the people over there really well. When a recruit came in from New Jersey, let's say, we brought him to Madison Square Garden, and people like Frank McGuire was in charge of college basketball. Sonny Werblin, who was involved with all the events at the Garden. You know, he signed Broadway Joe. He's a very famous guy in New York. They all took me under their wing, and everybody loved our program. They loved our kids, and I think some of them even liked me. So it was a great, great time. And I was honored to take the job when I was offered it. And I have some great kids from that era. We took a trip in 1982, 83. We took a trip to Yugoslavia. We landed in Belgium. We stayed in France. We played all over the place. And we played the very best teams in Yugoslavia. And we were the USA to those people over there. We packed everywhere we played. You know, the place was filled. And I went over there thinking, oh, I'll just lay back, kick back, and enjoy this trip. And that's what I told the team before the first game. But then you get the referees that are literally cheating you. And, you know, you're USA, and they're like, they have the USA American flag and they're holding it upside down. And we only lost 1 game over there. We were 11-1, and no other team has had that kind of, you know, success over there. So that team that year won the MAC championship. And, you know, I wish we had taken a trip or 2 more than that, because every year that we ever took a trip, we won the conference championship the next year.
You mentioned how it would take a couple of years once you got there, but after that second season, you went on a stretch where for those 5 years, you had 19 wins. You had a conference championship in the mix there as well. What type of qualities were you looking for in a player when you tried to build that program?
Well, by that time in my career, I had been 3 years at Tufts, and I built a really good program there. We were as good as almost any team in New England in Division I. And then I came to Columbia. I spent 4 years there. And then at Fordham, I was in my 10th year. So I really, you know, I had a pretty good idea of what it would take for Fordham to win. One was to try to play a more reasonable schedule, not be just hopping all over the country. So we would play North Carolina, and they'd be great, obviously. They have Michael Jordan and James Worthy and all those guys. Kenny, the Jet Smith. They were, you know, probably the best team in America. We played them. We played them in the Garden. We played Notre Dame. We beat Notre Dame 2 years in a row during that stretch of NITs. And, you know, a lot of people thought we should have been, you know, bubble type team, but the MAC didn't have any clout with, you know, the NCAA in those days, and they didn't have the RPIs. You know, we played some of the toughest schedules in the country. Eastern basketball was at its height. Rutgers had been to the Final Four. They were undefeated in 1976, and Fordham played them then, and we played them during my first 3 or 4 years. And then they dropped us after we beat them 2 out of 3 times there. So, I mean, we beat UConn. We beat all kinds of great teams that were Eastern teams. And then we started to recruit better and better. You know, my last class at Fordham, we left them and my assistant, Bob Quinn, with, you know, one NBA player, Danny O'Sullivan. He was from Jersey, from North Jersey. We had been recruiting him since his sophomore year because his coach told us that he had the grades, then we could recruit him. So we started recruiting Danny and you know, advising him on what camps to go to where he could compete. And he was 6'11". Fred Herzog, we recruited him until when he was a sophomore. But we had Greg Pedro. It was Michigan State and Fordham. He went to Michigan State, transferred back to Fordham, and I was dying to coach him. And Joe Paterno was probably in the top 3 in the Northeast in recruiting. He was a Jersey kid. He was recruited by Villanova, by UConn, every big school in the Northeast. Our recruiting was getting to be really good. And I was looking forward to that. But it didn't work out. You know, we didn't quite have the commitment you needed to be, you know, a top-rung team. We had an opportunity to go to the Big East way back in '79, but we punted. You know, we decided we didn't want to go to a conference where they weren't the same academically. Like Georgetown is and also ran academically, or Villanova. Now those are 2 of the hottest schools in the country to get to. But that's what the smarter heads of the university decided to do. So I kind of felt I couldn't do any more at Fordham. And so then I started listening to some of the offers out there. But our Fordham years were just, I say they were blessed, because my wife and I got married there in the chapel with Father George McMahon providing the services and you know, what more can you say? I've met so many great people from my years at Fordham, and I still run into them, still hear from them, still watch TV and see, like, Bill Pascrell, you know, leading the movement to dump Trump. And he was one of our biggest supporters during my years at Fordham. So we had a well-connected alumni, and I really felt that Fordham was a great school, not a good one, a great school. And they were really concerned about my student athletes and making sure they had degrees, a meaningful degree in something they could do. And they were excellent at, you know, helping. You know, if you can contact a guy at Fordham who was in a Wall Street firm, and there were many, and ask him for a summer job, I never got turned down. And, you know, I knew people in Merrill Lynch and Salomon Brothers at the time, and a few others. And our kids interned there. And you had NBC, where Arthur Watson, a Fordham grad, he was the president of NBC Sports. Arthur helped Mike Breen and some of the other kids who were interested in broadcasting. And we treated our play-by-play and color analysts who were just students at Fordham, we treated them as if they were part of the New York media. They traveled with us. They flew around the country with us. You know, they stayed in the same hotels. They ate in the same places. We included them. And they're all great Fordham people that I'm very proud of, not just my players, but guys like that, to see what's happened to them and the great careers they've carved out. You know, Bob Papa, he's with the New York Giants. Charlie Slows is with, and I should know better, but
the Nationals, the Washington
Nationals. I had too many interviews today, but Bob Papa, obviously a New York Giant, that's my team. And then you got Michael Kay with the New York Yankees and his ESPN radio. And then you have Mike Breen, probably the top voice in the NBA. I think there's no question about that. A wonderful guy and a friend, and just incredible kids. So when people ask me about, where was my best spot, I often think it was Fordham, because it launched me into the real big time as a coach at Rhode Island. At Rhode Island, nobody questioned us if we got in the NCAA. If we got in the NCAA tournament playing the kind of crazy schedule we did at Fordham, the NCAA would be on campus figuring out what we were doing wrong and how we were cheating to get it done. So it was great. It was wonderful.
Obviously, we don't want to take up too much more of your time, so I just got one quick question, one little bit side note I want to ask you about. But incredible memory lane you've walked us down in terms of New York City hoops, your experience at Fordham, your success here, your Hall of Fame run at Fordham. I'm one of our most successful coaches in our program's history here, and all the names of alumni and student athletes that you influenced, and obviously getting married, our chapel here at Rose Hill. Just tremendous to hear your stories, and we couldn't be more proud, obviously, of for you and with you on the College Basketball Hall of Fame. The utmost of successful accolades and accomplishments, and we're so excited that you're going in. I got to ask you a question though, and this is one of our last one. I'll let Manny wrap us up here tonight. I'm a baseball guy at heart, Coach. So it's not well talked about, and obviously you have had an incredible basketball coaching career. But as a student athlete at Connecticut, you played both sports, basketball and baseball, including the College World Series, which is quite impressive. I would love your thoughts on that. And also, the last thing I'll leave you with, and I'm curious to hear your story. Every time people bring up Tom Penders to me at Fordham, great run, great coach, great success at Fordham Hall of Famer, amazing guy. But they also talk about what an incredible softball player you are and were. And you continue to play softball in leagues around New York City during your time here. Is that true? And can you speak about that?
I played for the Raybestos Cardinals out of Stratford, Connecticut, where I grew up. And they had a great men's softball team. I just was offered a position at the company. Back in 1969, I was negotiating with the Cleveland Indians, where I made Rookie of the Year in A-ball and made the All-Star team. And then I was promoted to Double-A baseball in the middle of July until the end of August. Broke a rib playing third base, charging a bunt, and the guy didn't bunt and got me right in the ribs. I only played about 35 games, and the rib still bothers me today. But in negotiating the contract, we didn't have agents in those days. Nobody had an agent. I played in an organization with Lou Piniella and Fran Healy, who was a backup catcher for the Yankees. He was a teammate. Jack Brohammer, who played for the Red Sox, he played third base. He was an outstanding player. And Vic Carell was a catcher for the Cincinnati Reds and the Atlanta Braves. These are guys I played with, but I played against Louis Tiant during spring training. He was on our AAA team. And we had Sudden Sam McDowell and Sonny Siebert were the two aces on the staff. Eventually, Louis moved up, and Cleveland had three great starters. And unfortunately, the Yankees were down in that. That was when CBS took over the Yankees, and they ran it right into the ground. The Yankees were in last place in 1968. Cleveland was a close second to Detroit. I think they finished 7 games behind, but it was a 2 to 3 game race throughout the year. Cleveland had a good owner, Vernon Stouffer, and he had some money. And it was a good organization, but it was hard to support a family on $500 a month in A-ball, and then $700 a month was the minimum. And I was trying to get it up around $1,000, big deal. but in those days it was to me, and then go back after coaching a high school team. But the softball came along at the same time. It was in the New York, the Bridgeport Post, which was in Fairfield County, was a huge newspaper. It was in that newspaper that I was negotiating my contract and holding out and not going to spring training because I was coaching basketball and I couldn't, number one. And Ray Bestis offered me a great sales position, which would not interfere with the season. So I was able to play ball from May all the way to September 15th. It was almost like a pro baseball season. We played 100 games and we played, we never played in New York City, but we played in Long Island. We played in Paterson, New Jersey. We played over in Newark, New Jersey, Elizabeth, New Jersey. And then we played in Stamford, Connecticut, which is just over the border, and all over New England. We were America's team 5 different years. We won 5 national championships, and then we played Canada in the World Series of fast pitch softball. I mean, the pitchers threw 100 miles an hour, and they were right on top of you. It's like these guys that throw 100 miles today, but in softball, the ball either went straight up or straight down. There's very rarely did you see a curveball, which would have been a hittable pitch for even right-handers. But we faced the best, and we had some of the best on our team. I went into the Hall of Fame in 2016, and I joined something like 6 other guys that were on that last team I played for. So we were the Yankees of fast pitch softball, but men's softball kind of lost its deal when they didn't get the bid to play in the Olympics. They were up for it, but they chose the women's game instead. And the women have gotten a lot better, but it's not the men's game. We had great hitters who left professional baseball like me, who were excellent softball hitters. So that's really doing your homework there. I don't often get asked questions about fast softball, but thank you.
I love it.
And we thank you, Coach. That's Fordham and College Basketball Hall of Famer Tom Penders. We appreciate the reflections, and thanks for taking the time to join us.
I really enjoyed it. Thanks a lot, and go Fordham.